Hello, everyone. My name is Roopa Sunku, and I'm the Chief Evangelist at Touch a Life Foundation. I have another episode of Career Elevations brought to you, and I'm extremely excited to introduce to you Aparna Kadari. Aparna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for the opportunity, Roopa and TALRadio.
Absolutely, our pleasure to have you. Let's start off with telling us a little bit about what you do today and what are some of your facets along with work that you are engaged with, Aparna.
For a living, I work for Fannie Mae. I am the Information Security Director. I have 3 teams, an operations team, which is a 24/7 team that takes care of all the production issues and anything that is important in terms of reactivity in the company. We are also a scalable team. I have an engineering team which deals with endpoint protection. I have a second engineering team that takes care of cloud security.
Fantastic. That seems like a lot of security work and a lot of technical teams that you manage. How do you believe that you landed yourself in this position? And what has your career journey been so far to bring you to Fannie Mae at this point?
I've been with Fannie Mae for 15 years now, but prior to Fannie Mae, I've worked in 6-7 other places. And different, it's not the mortgage industry. I've worked in finance, I was in healthcare, I was in pharmaceuticals. But for most that perhaps don't know me, I am a pharmacist by education. And I have an undergraduate in pharmaceuticals. When I came to the United States, it was during that period of time where 9/11 had happened and the pharmaceutical industry was very close to sponsoring H1s. And also, my mission in life was never to be in sciences. I always wanted to be a journalist or a lawyer, and you know how parents are in India. They would want their only child. I'm an only child, and they wanted me to wear a white coat, preferably become a doctor, on par with some of my illustrious cousins who are all doctors and very famous doctors. So their goal for me was to become a doctor, which heart in hearts I never wanted to be. But I compromised somewhere along the lines and did wear a white coat. But it was a pharmacist's white coat. Very proud of my undergraduate degree and what I learned there. But my heart was always to do something that suits my personality. And standing behind the counter and dispensing drugs was not one of those traits. So the first opportunity I got, sadly, was after 9/11. And that is when I plunged myself into the consultant, approached one of the consultants and got myself to get a job as a data analyst at MetLife International. All my internships were in pharmaceuticals, healthcare, at a startup, but I wasn't successful getting my H-1B through pharmaceuticals for obvious reasons at that time. I started as a data analyst, then slowly got myself into process management, did Lean Six Sigma, then got into production support, release management, and then started learning the ropes of technology. I cannot code to save my life, but I have done every single aspect of software development lifecycle except being a developer myself. So that landed me into an operations role, a production support role, 24/7 role. If you know how the industry works, there are not many people in production support, not many women in production support, to be precise. So I enjoyed what I learned there. I enjoyed the lifestyle. It was a great experience where I had a lot of resolve at the end of the day. The issues that came in, I had the greatest satisfaction of doing them and feeling accomplished at the end of the day. And that's when I said, perhaps this is my calling. Not that I knew much, I had very little experience. And while I was doing that, a lot of my mentors thought I should explore project management, business management, so that I could get a lot of things in my portfolio. So I went ahead and did project management for about 6 to 7 years, learned a lot, managed budgets up to $110 million, ran huge programs, engagements, even pretty much did a startup with both the GSEs. And then somehow I didn't feel like I was living my life. And I decided to come back to an operations role, a technology role, because that is who I thought I am at heart. A lot of people feel that if only you can code, or if you're a computer science major, and that is what you call yourself as a technologist. But I realized that being a technologist doesn't always have to do with being a computer science major or being a developer.
Absolutely.
It is many other things.
Yeah.
Like if you have the penchant for innovation, if you are inquisitive enough to do things differently, doing things out of the box, not just thinking out of the box. And I had all of those. I was very disruptive, as in I was always curious, and I loved breaking things down and taking them apart and putting them back together. So even though I didn't have an engineering quote unquote background, I thought that I needed to be in operations because that is where I truly belong. So within Fannie Mae, it's very encouraging if I want to look for new roles. And I had a lot of good sponsors, mentors who let me explore the possibilities that I have within the company. And I landed in this role, in my current role, which was not so huge at that time. It was a manager role. And I loved what I was doing. I loved building those new processes. I loved the customer engagements. I loved getting on calls to resolve problems and issues that the customers had. And it just felt like I was living the dream in the true sense. I know in United States, in American English, when you say living the dream, it is somewhat sarcastic, but I was truly having a time of my life. So that's when it occurred to me that I could be doing more. And I started asking for more and acquiring more areas. And the best part is I never stopped learning. So it became very easy for me to establish myself, prove myself, and ask for more. Because I had the trust that I built by proving my results, so that my managers and my leadership have a clear indication that I'm able to take on the new role and I'm able to deliver against business value. So they had no problem in entrusting me with additional roles. So here is how I landed. But after a hard day of work, because my work could probably take an entire day, it runs long. The way I sublimate is I write poetry. And like we were talking before, you as you may have seen on my LinkedIn page, I do write poetry. I also do a lot of give back to the community, especially women in similar situations who want to explore technology roles that have had a break in their career, and they want to get out there and get the foot in the door. And I volunteer at Women in Technology. It's a local organization, nonprofit for women. I'm also a part of Executive Women's Forum, where I not only mentor, but I also get mentored. Because no matter how high you go in an organization or how accomplished you might be, we all need mentoring. And that is what I do. I also help students who are aspirants to go into college with their essays. I try and help out friends and family with their resume building. I speak, on behalf of my organization at different conferences. And
wow.
Wherever, it's like the WD-40, right? Wherever you feel I can fit in, I fit in there.
Awesome. I mean, I have just jotted down an array of thoughts, and it is pretty hilarious because I think I can relate to majority of all your things, and it's almost my replica being seen in you. So I'm super excited that you brought up some of these topics. So I'm going to start you off with just highlighting some of the things that caught my attention. First is you never stop learning. That I thought was great, along with being inquisitive. That definitely creates a self-awareness of what you are, who you are, and what you want to be. So that's the reason why I think you were able to make those pivots from pharmacy to IT, program management, and then project management, and then over to operations. That's just fantastic. The other key thing that you mentioned was sponsors, mentors, and strong trust that you built, showing and showcasing your results. I think that's a super, super critical piece in anybody's journey to success. And for those of you who are venturing out into career pivots like Aparna has done, consider getting yourself a mentor. A mentor would be that person who gives you that objective viewpoint, while a sponsor would be somebody who can actually take you to that next level of your aspirations. So I think that was pretty cool with what you shared. Now, the next piece that you did is kind of created these changes in your life as you went along and created that aspect of coming back and giving back to the community with working with women who want to get back after a break. And that I think is really critical. So let me just stop there for a minute on my end and ask you, what are some of the main things that you look out for in your own growth, as well as recommendations that you can give people who are coming back to work and making those pivotal changes from a career which is totally unrelated and landing yourself into a related? Do you do things like certifications? I heard you talk about Lean and Sigma and so forth. So are those certifications that you gather along? What would be the first few steps that you do to come back and pivot?
I had the opportunity to learn on the job. Not many have that chance to do what I did. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to invest in certifications in order to get the role. The learning I had, like I said, was on the job. And without the approach I took was, I did not aspire to learn the technologies that I was managing. I was always into problem solving, because if you understand the problem, it becomes very easy to dwell into the details, understand the people, process, and the technology aspects of why a certain issue has occurred. A lot of people who are technically savvy sometimes take it and run with it, where they are looking at the technology alone. And for me, because I'm a kinesthetic learner, I focus on all the three dimensions. And all my learnings have been because I focused on a multitude of aspects that solve the problem instead of just focusing on the technical aspects. But that's not to say that right or wrong. Everybody has their own way of learning. Yeah. For people who want to make the switch from wherever they are today into cybersecurity, and this is what I tell everyone, is to invest in something like Security Plus and start looking at the various areas within cybersecurity, because it's a vast field. Whether you're interested in application security, whether you are a threat intelligence person, or you're interested in detection or response, or like me, if you are in operations and you find a thrill in that adrenaline rush. So there's so many areas. There is identity and access management, and so many things that you can do within cybersecurity. So the first thing is to understand where you fit in. Not always we are able to find the exact place that we fit in, but we should be willing to explore. And that is what I did. I was willing to explore. I didn't get into a job thinking, this is it, this is where I'm going to retire. But I went into the job saying, let me try it out, see how well I fit in, because it's not just important that I like the job. Well, the people who have the job, my team, also has to like me. Because at the end of the day, the cohesion is what matters. And it has to be a wholesome experience versus an individualistic experience. So there are different ways to switch careers, like you said, and pivot. There is no one way to do it, but we should always try and seek the path that's most comfortable, because everybody's personality is different. So we need to kind of put together a list of what are my negotiables and what are my non-negotiables.
Absolutely. And I think just the fear of the unknown should be diminished and kind of go drive towards what you feel are your strengths to pick up anything, be it a small job or a big job. As long as you can get back into the workforce, you may carve yourself out a new niche that you didn't even know you had in you. So that's just fantastic, and great thoughts there, Aparna. So let me go ahead and ask you, what are some of your influences in taking you to where you are or bringing you to where you are? What are some of the influences? I've heard you talk about mentors and sponsors, but what are some of the personal influences and inspirations, probably?
I think most of my inspiration started at home. My parents were great influences. They both were from the pre-independence era, so they had a certain resolution about themselves, certain grit, certain rebellious behavior. I think they genetically, I was blessed to be handed down those traits. My mom's creativity, clubbed with her penchant for education, my dad's diplomacy, and his way with words, I think I acquired a bit of everything and I became who I am. So my influences started at home at a very early age. I was told that I started speaking at when I was 14 months old, and it is probably why I was able to learn so many languages, because the environment at home was so conducive. Then my teachers in high school prepped me so well that I'm very grateful for that foundational education. My communication skills were so harnessed at that age that I didn't have to learn or put any kind of extra effort after I came to the United States. When I came here, I was one of the first colored students in my campus. It was kind of an experimentation that they tried to do to see how international students will probably survive or flourish in that place. And I was one of them. It was very difficult. I couldn't even join a class with regular students. So I joined the classes with executive MBA students. And that experience was fantastic because as a regular student, nobody gets that kind of an opportunity to have executives or folks that are already in the workforce as their classmates. And being that outlier I was, helped me in many more ways, even though in the beginning I was very nervous. I had no confidence because I had zero work experience coming from India and coming straight to study here. But being amongst professionals and learning amongst professionals created that experience that probably nobody else would. I would hear from their real life experiences and how they're applying their education and what they're learning in class to at work, how we did projects together, how they taught me to look beyond what's in front of us. My first official mentor was the Dean of Students, a Black woman who had a doctorate at that time, very strong, and she was an only child too. And she pretty much used to tell me that if I don't start doing things out of my comfort zone, I will never be successful. So she pushed me to my limits. There were a couple of days where I was homeless, and because the dorms were so expensive, I didn't have that kind of money. But all these mentors and my host mom, my host parents, who are first generation Italian Americans, had no clue who I was. But I started working for her in one of the departments on campus. She looked at me and she said, "How could you be homeless when we are there for you?" So they took me in, random strangers. Took me in. So you can imagine the kind of support system I started building really early on, where relatives or friends couldn't come to rescue. Random strangers offered these random acts of kindness. It was tremendous. I mean, I used to be emotional most of the time because someone who I never know would come to my rescue would always come to my rescue, either with food, either with clothes. I never had to buy new clothes for the first 10 years of my life because I got these amazing hand-me-downs, and no shame in taking those hand-me-downs, but I always had help. There were times where I wouldn't have money because my paycheck wouldn't come in, even though I was a graduate assistant and I was a resident assistant. The paycheck wouldn't come in, but my host parents and my mentors would give me money, would buy me food. Not that they were spoiling me, but they would do the bare minimum that's required for me to survive.
Wow. You have chills down my spine, and that is just so touching. And now I can relate to why you give back as well. And I think it all started with you experiencing these acts of kindness from people that you didn't know, but were that support system or that angel being sent down to take care of you. So that is just fantastic. Perfect. Oh my gosh, I don't think there's anything more that I could kind of discover from you, but kind of tying up the show together. Is there any last messages or thoughts about how you have used your grit, your support system, and the ability to go learn, inspire others, and make them trust you and sponsor you to the next levels? Is there anything that you can share with our listeners to kind of leave as the last few notes?
The trust I built came in very unique ways. Mm-hmm. I started taking on roles and started doing jobs that not everybody wanted to do. I took the least favorite job, turned it into my own, and succeeded at it. And that is how I built my trust with my sponsors. And that's when they realized that no matter what that role might be, no matter how hard or how unpopular the role might be, if we can have Aparna do it, they knew that I would do it very well. So my first learning was to do the jobs, to get the edge that nobody else has.
Fantastic. That is such a strong message. Try everything and build that trust bit by bit, brick by brick, to create that foundation for yourself. Fantastic. Is there anything else that you could inspire us with, since you've given us so many things to think about and heartwarming and spine-chilling experiences that you've gone through, and your grit that made you fight and forge forward is just fantastic, Aparna.
Whether be women or men, I know these days hyper-independence is frowned upon, where people say, no, you need someone in your life to be there. While I totally agree that we do need that tribe, that support system that can propel us forward, I think we should be hyper-independent. We should be someone that can stand alone when there is crisis. So hyper-independence is not a wrong thing. So these days, I say to myself, and people may look at me and say, she's overly independent. And I tell myself, that is quite okay. So if someone is targeting your brand and saying, you're overly this or overly aggressive or you are too much, I think we all have to build our own success criteria and say, I'm enough. And whatever I am quite okay.
Fantastic. That is such a beautiful message. Accept who you are, go with what your strengths are, and never shy back to exhibit your strengths, and your full potential will definitely come upon you. Fantastic. This has just been very, very beautiful. And I thank you very much for sharing some of the most personal details that would definitely inspire people. And I think this will be the first show that we've got here on TALRadio around women with pivots on their careers, from academics to what they do today, and getting into territory that is seen as technical, and continue to kind of go there with your strengths of operations and your wisdom around process that ties it all back together. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for a very inspirational talk, and appreciate it, Aparna. Thank you, listeners. And if you have any ideas or any questions that you may have for anybody at TALRadio, please feel free to get on our website at touchalife.org and reach out to us. And I hope to bring you more and more such inspirational people like Aparna. Thank you once again, everyone, and talk to you soon.